Good evening, everybody. Another episode of the Up North Journal podcast here. Memorial Day. Yep, I'm sitting alone. No Danny tonight. He took the weekend off. If you watched the little video that I did earlier in the day, you'd have noticed that I told you he was spending time with the family. So I'm going to spend a few minutes here. We're going to get rocking. I'm going to take and share a couple things here real quick. So if you guys are out and about there, get your drinks and get your popcorn, your beverages, and your food, whatever you'd like to do, and get ready for a shortened version of the Up North Journal podcast tonight. I'll get a little more into that here in just a minute. I'll let you know exactly what's going on tonight. So we'll do a little bit of sharing, and we will get going. You got questions tonight? Tonight's a good night to get those in. We'll talk a little bit back and forth and converse if you'd like. I've got an opportunity to sit here and do a little chatting tonight. So hope everybody's weekend is going well. One more here and we will get going. Alrighty. And let me turn the volume down. And we will see what is shaking. Danny, if you're watching, talking about tomorrow, we will, I'll call you. He's going to be a smart butt. He's going to be texting me like crazy tonight during the show. I see how you are, Danny. You're going to stay at home, give me grief, but not come over here. Okay. All right. I see what you're doing. That's fine. Okay. Jim Miller, Chris Snurr, Dave Hamley are watching. Hey, everybody. Yep. Okay, let me take care of Danny here and we will get going. Alrighty. Let's get back to what we were doing here. Alrighty. So for tonight's show, what we got going, if all of you have remembered in the past couple podcasts, I've talked a little bit about getting the target bow set up, things we've been doing with that. But if you remember, back in April, I went down to Cabela's and actually talked with Dan Yassa and Chris Schnurr that works at Cabela's. Dan Yassa is our PSC sales manager here in Michigan and Ohio. And we talked a little bit about why hunters that bow hunt should get into the target game of archery or target shooting. So I sat down with them for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and talked to them about that. And that's what's going to be actually on the podcast. We're not going to show it here tonight on the live stream, but that's something you're going to have to listen to on the podcast. And we go through everything about compare and contrast of, hunting setups versus target setups, of why you should use one versus the other, the different archery games that are out there, and things of that nature, and how it can actually help you become more effective in the field. So that's going to be on the actual podcast portion that we're going to run this week. So without further ado, we're going to get going here. Stand by in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting in the cabin tonight all by myself. There's no Danny around. He is staying home this weekend, enjoying the Memorial Day weekend, as everybody should, with their friends and family. So we've given him the weekend off. But we're still going to have a show. We're going to sit here and chat a little bit. A little bit later in the show, we're going to bring you our actual interview that I did back in April with Dan Yassa of PSE Archery and Chris Schnurr of Cabela's, talking about setting up and getting into the target archery game. So stay tuned for that in the next segment. But what we're going to bring you tonight is, actually, I did get my target bow set up this week. So first thing we did, as we talked last week here, let me flip cameras real quick. We started with the stands release. Okay, the stands release, I've been practicing with that today. I shot 50 or 60 arrows with it, and it's taken some getting used to. I can tell you that right now. It's not quite like the standard triggered release that I've been using in the past, you know, the wrist strap, where you'd actually execute the shot and using your finger as a trigger finger, so to say, and executing the shot. You know, now we're using our thumb on this and hitting this barrel, or rocking that release into the barrel or into your thumb to execute the shot. So it's taking some getting used to. Let me flip back the other camera here real quick. As I went through this, I noticed my shots seem to group a lot better. But what I did notice too is getting used to switching from this style release, the trigger release, to the stands release. When I would get back at full draw and pull back, a lot of times I would flinch. I was almost wanting to take that finger and reach forward and pull, but obviously there's nothing there. And a couple times my shots got a little bit hanky with that. It's muscle memory that's been ingrained in this arm and this hand and finger for probably ever since I was, 14 years old when I started shooting a bow. So I'm trying to break nearly 40 years of memory and retraining my muscles and my mind to actually take and rotate this into my thumb to execute the shot. So with that being said, it took a lot of mind over matter today, but I'm still pleased with the way the bow shot. And speaking of the bow, I got it sitting right here as well. Okay, you guys remember I was over at Spot Shooters this week setting up the Phenom SD from PSE. Let me flip over to this other camera again here real quick, get a little better view of what we got going on. But it's got the mini drive cam on it, which pulls real nice. It gives you a good solid back wall. The valley on this obviously is different than what I'm used to with the PSE Evolve. The valley seems to be narrower, but a good solid back wall. And I'm running the Copper John Mark III Pro sight on the front here. And setting this up, we did a little tuning with it, talking with Jim Beasley over at Spot Shooter this week after we got everything set up. He wanted me to do a walk back tune, 10 yards to 30 yards. So got my first pin set up close to the bullseye, shot, got a good grouping. Took and hung a string from that arrow. One of the arrows, we just left one of the arrows in the bail. A string down, put a weight at the bottom, so we got a nice straight string. Step back to 30 yards, and then we shoot at that string to see which side of the arrows were falling, and then tune the rest to those shots to get the shots to fall right there on the string. So that took a little bit of doing. And actually, I didn't have a long enough string and actually hit the weight that I had on the end of the string with one of my arrows, and it cost me an arrow, so shattered an arrow. So that was a lesson learned. But we got everything tuned on that from left to right. Everything's flying good. And I started working on my top pin there. And talking with Jim, I'm asking him, I said, okay, we're going to shoot Hunter Division. I got 5 pins. That's what Hunter Division allows, is 5 pins, 5 fixed pins. So I'm like, okay, so where do we set up with this? We set up 20, 30, 40, 50, or do we set up something different? And he told me, well, he said, most guys that shoot this, they'll set up 25, 35, 45, 55, and 65, and then play off of those pins. So taking his recommendation, that's where I'm working on my first pin, my top pin. You can see there, well, you probably can't see it, but we're working on that pin setup at 25 yards, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. One thing that happened to me today that scared the living daylights out of me, I'm not used to shooting with a big stabilizer out front. I use a mini stabilizer and my hunting setup, but I've never shot with this rear stabilizer. So that's something that's new. And the way this is set up here, you can see on the camera, this bar ties right into the front stabilizer right there below my hand. It's got this little bracket that comes off to the side and feeds this back stabilizer. Well, during the shooting today, probably 30, 40 shots in, this started to work loose and this rod rotated down and I wasn't paying attention. And I took a shot and it caught the edge of this stabilizer, this rubber back here. And when it did, I actually thought the bow came apart. It really freaked me out. It checked everything out. You know, limbs are all solid, no cracks, no nothing. There's no frayed spots on it. The cams are all in good shape. Everything's fine. And I spent a lot of time going through it. And then I got back up to the bale, started shooting at 10 yards again just to make sure everything was still spot on. But eventually we worked back out to that 30-yard mark, got everything tuned, and then started tuning that 25-yard pin. But this is something I'm really going to have to start paying attention to, just simply because I'm not used to shooting with that and making sure that this is tight. So you guys are getting into this game, learn from Mike, learn from a mistake that I made, that this thing, it can actually rotate down and into the shot or into the string path. So it woke me up pretty quick. So, but other than that, you know, the bow performs really good. I'm really pleased the way it shoots. It feels good in the hand. Like I said, with the stands release and everything, practicing through that towards the end of my shooting today, everything was coming together pretty good, and the grouping was a lot better. So, but so that is the PSE Phenom SD that I'm going to be rocking this year when we start getting out and shooting targets. So, and actually I forgot too, the AE Prophecy Rest as well is what we're using on this drop away. So. Alrighty, so let's get that back over there. And let me get back on my front camera here. So, but yesterday, being that I had the day off work, we did a little talking with our land consultants up north, and they wanted to come over. We've been talking a little bit about this over the last couple of weeks, that we're going to be doing some deer management on our property, and we've got some guys coming on board to help us out and get us on the right path. So this weekend was a weekend they wanted to come up, take a look at what we had, and actually go over the food plots, kind of figure the lay of the land out, and start putting a plan together, start working towards that plan. So that's what we did yesterday. But I've got a short video here that we shot yesterday, and with permission from the consultant, he said I can show this. So here on the live stream, we're going to show this. Those of you on the podcast, actually, you're not going to be able to see it. Where we'll post it, you'll have to go over and watch the live stream for those of you on the podcast. But I'm going to put this up. If the audio is a little off, let me know. Text me here real quick. But we're gonna try to play this here. First time we've ever done this with actual video with audio. So we'll see how this goes.
Take a look at that. Say, okay, what's in it? What's in it, deer will eat. So we'll pull out what a deer's going to go after. He's going to go after that right there. He's going to go after that right there. So you get the message that I'm done.
There's not a lot in there. The deer's going to eat.
There's not a lot in there. There's a little maple they'll get. Then this follows up your Anna's deer browse pretty good.
Okay.
But the rest of this is nothing a deer wants. Okay.
Okay.
So, and this is spring, so this comes up and it's done. There's nothing else here for it. Okay. So if you put it out here, everything in there deer will eat. Okay. And it'll come back. They'll eat it, it'll come back, eat it, come back. So if you remember us talking about an acre of food plot is equal to 100 acres of well-managed forest.
Right.
So this circle represents 100 of these out there.
Okay.
So the value you're getting in this little hoop is equal to 100 out there if this was well managed.
If it was.
Yeah. So you're probably 150, you're 149 short out of what you have right there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep. So your bang for your buck is in right now is in the food plot.
Yes.
The food source, the amount of food
source. Right now we're looking at getting the deer in better shape coming out of the winter, because till they recover their body fat, they're going to start growing antlers.
Okay.
Okay, which is what everybody's after, is antlers. But for us, you know, we're in the milk cow business right now. We saw a doe that's about to fawn. She needs to make milk. It's going to be tough for her to make milk out there, and she's going to spend a lot of time away from her fawn because she's got to eat.
Which I would think would increase the chances of predation.
It goes through the roof. Okay. So if she'll fawn right here close, this food plot, she can eat, lay down, digest her food, make milk, go feed her fawns, come back over.
Okay.
Versus being off chasing some groceries somewhere.
Gotcha. All right, so that's the video. Hopefully you guys could hear that. Hopefully it came through okay. But for those of you who don't know, that's Wayne Sitton, who I've had the opportunity of talking with quite a few times. We've done some video work with him before, and the amount of information that we get that he shares with us is just invaluable. So the thing I got that I guess I really took away from that little demonstration right there, and we've talked about this before, you know, food plots versus, you know, how much forage is in the woods. And we did our deer browse study here a couple weeks back, and we still haven't got the full results back from it yet, but you know, we knew going into this that our woods was heavily browsed. But as he showed there in that circle, when he threw that hula hoop out there, just arbitrarily threw it out there in the middle of the field or of the woods, there was very few plants there that deer can actually will eat or can eat that give them the nutrition. So you saw how few he picked out of there. And then you take that and throw that out in the middle of a food plot, and, you know, a well-managed forest land versus a food plot, he said, is 100 to 1. So, you know, you do the math, it's just, you can figure out food plots this time of year are really important. But the other thing that really opened my eyes was talking about the predation. You know, with the does coming in now into fawning season and needing that nutrition to make milk, if they're out in the woods, even if it's well-managed woods and landscape, that it's not going to be as robust as what a food plot is. So they're out spending more time in the woods versus the food plot searching for food to make milk. They're away from their fawns for a longer period of time. With that being said, that gives the predators more time to find those fawns, okay? So the longer the mother's away from the fawns, the worse it gets, you know. And when I asked that question to him, you know, he said, yes, predation goes up tremendously. So, you know, that was really eye-opening to me to understand that even planting food plots kind of helps with how much predation goes on, which I never equated the two. I never put food plots and predation together to understand how that dynamic worked, but it made complete sense when he was talking about it, with them going out into the field versus being in the food plots and getting that food. So that was yesterday. We spent a couple hours up there on the property before the big rains came, and you know, after that, then we headed back home. So, but you know, that's going to be it pretty much today for here, the first segment of the show. Like I said, for those on the podcast, we're going to get into the archery segment that we pre-recorded back in April. And right now, we're just going to take it and throw it to a break, and we'll be right back after this. For those of you on the live stream, you know, if you've got any questions or anything, feel free to throw a couple of them at me. But we're just going to kind of wrap this up pretty quick here today, being Memorial Day. We've got some family in, but I still want to get a chance to get some of this information out to you, let you know we're doing the show and that there is going to be a podcast this week. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And, you know, we've got, let me see, James Landers joined us from watching. Thanks for stopping in. And a couple of former co-workers, Diane and Chesna. So thank you for stopping in and taking a quick look. Jason Radecki, one of our loyal followers here, he says the only good thing about this heat's hopefully it kill all the ticks. You know, and that's one thing that we drove around the property most of the trip. We did get out and check fields and things like that, but I got out, the very first place we got out, I walked, maybe 30, 40 yards. I thought, you know, I need to keep an eye on. I looked down the pant leg, and here comes a little traveler right away. Ticks were starting to jump on already, so I paid really close attention. The ticks, making sure that I had kept them off me yesterday, but we didn't spend much time with actual boots on the ground out in the field. But yeah, if you're out in the fields this time of year, make sure you, your pets, whoever, you make sure you do tick checks, because they are very, very prevalent this year. So, but I tell you what, doesn't seem like anybody else has chimed in here real quick, so we're going to sign off for this edition of the live stream. But I hope everybody has a very good Memorial Day. Just remember, though, the reason for the holiday is to remember those fallen soldiers who have fought and protected our freedoms, to be able to do things like this, be able to go up north and hunt and fish and get out there and even grill on the grill today, you know, which I did. So, you know, make sure that we don't lose sight of what's important and the reason for the holiday. So that'll do it for us this week, folks, here on the live stream. Y'all take care, and we'll be back again next week. We may have an announcement. Stay tuned. That's all I'm going to say. Stay tuned, and you'll see. All right, that'll do it for us this week, folks.